Grow 'em Big with Steve Bartylla. Brought to you by Huntworth and these other fine sponsors.
You know, we all understand that stacking the odds helps, and without a doubt, slapping out a Antler King honey hole plot, some cereal rye, there's all sorts of things that we can do to go ahead and stack the odds in our favor. And we do a whole bunch of them. Unfortunately, one of the biggest ways we drop the ball is when it comes to cover and browse. Security cover and browse are two of the most important things in a whitetail's existence. They need that illusion of safety. Without cover, they have a hard time feeling real safe when they can go ahead and see forever. Well, guess what? When they can see forever, they understand the predators can as well. And then the other thing that we just drop the ball on is how darn much leafy and woody browse whitetails naturally consume. And it don't matter if we're talking about the richest egg country in this world. When available, the majority of a whitetail's diet is not made up of crop fields. It's not made up of corn. It's actually made up of woody and leafy browse, assuming quality woody and leafy browse is available. So if you really want to go ahead and stack the odds and come up with a difference maker, focus on your timber. You focus on your timber and all of a sudden you're doing something a whole bunch of other people aren't. Now we are extremely lucky in that every year Ian Wallace from Chestnut Hill Outdoors goes ahead and does shows specifically on creating nurseries for us. I'm just smart enough to realize that when you're dealing with a true expert in an area, you shut up and let them talk. So when it comes to actual nursery creation, Ian has forgotten more than I will ever think that I've learned. Okay, so let's let him stick to the actual nurseries. Other than, here's what we want in our nurseries. We want diversity, and we want to match the trees to our growing zones and conditions. And finally, make it crops that those whitetails absolutely want to go out of their way for, such as Tungsten chestnuts, such as persimmons, such as apples, such as pears. Those, when you offer a smattering of those types of mass trees that they can't get otherwise in the neighborhood, you're gonna draw whitetails. When it comes to producing just straight leafy browse, you don't want them to be browsing on your nursery. Heavens, you want them to be browsing on your timber. When it comes to that, we can plant all sorts of woody browses, and they vary from being extremely easy to establish to such as the northern white cedar, a planting such as that needing more care and more protection growing up. Okay. But you are going to want to match those plantings to those areas. And it's going to, the ground I've managed up in northern Alberta, the tree species you're working with up there are way different than the tree species in central Minnesota, which are way different than the tree species in southern Wisconsin, which are way different than the tree species in Iowa and Missouri. And heaven's sakes, you get down to South Carolina, or you go over to Texas or Florida, and you're dealing with, for this Midwestern northern boy, a completely alien species. You match the browse to what the areas are capable of growing, what those deer actually want, what species will produce the desired result. Are you trying to just thicken up the place? If you're trying to just thicken up the place, logging is often your best route to go. That said, there are browse species that you can go ahead and plant that the more the deer browse, the more they turn into a bush. And the more tops and browse they produce, along with the more cover they produce. Then how much work do you want to put into this? You can go ahead and plant 10, 20, 30,000 trees if you want. I would not do that the very first time you go out there. If you are planting all those trees the very first time, what happens? I can't speak for anyone else. I personally am always much better at doing something the second time I do it. And I'm even better the third time I do it, and the fourth and the fifth. I continue to get better for at least a while. The same applies to habitat improvements. Go talk to your foresters. Stop at your DNRs and your Bureau of Wildlife Management. Almost all of them have tree programs for wildlife that we can take advantage of. And if nothing else, they are the experts on what the wildlife in that area browse on for leafy and woody browse, and they can set you up. They are your experts on what to plant. Just really think about where you're going to plant these things, and never forget, logging increases browse and cover while potentially putting money in your pockets.
Final thoughts, brought to you by Huntworth.
One of the biggest ways that we can go ahead and draw deer and get that advantage, stack the odds in our favor, is to go ahead and address their woody browse and cover. Create those nurseries. Offer those plantings that those whitetails can't get in the neighborhood, and try to offer enough of them so that there is mast on the ground for as much of season as humanly possible. Plant early dropping varieties, mid-season dropping varieties, and late season dropping varieties. By taking that approach, we can keep mast on the ground for a much, much longer, more stable period of time. By doing that, we create a stable food source, and then we go ahead and increase the cover and browse through logging and planting browse species. But please utilize those Department of Wildlife and DNR professionals, because they can be your best resource in telling you exactly what to plant and what species work the best in that area.